Okay. Lagos, you're welcome. If you just joined us, you are just in time. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981 on Smooth 98.1. My name is Kayode Baker.
And I am Mairo-Ese.
And
Good morning.
Lagos, good morning. You know what to do to be a part of this conversation. Please jump in at any point in time. Reach out to us on WhatsApp to be a part of our conversation. 0809 is where you can send your messages to, and also reach out to us on Twitter with the hashtag FreshlyPressed981, and send your messages to Smooth981 FM, and also on YouTube.
Yes, we're streaming live on YouTube. Please search Smooth 91 FM on YouTube to find us there and also get involved or send your messages through the live chat options. Forgive my cold, but thank you very much. The weather's changed. I'd like to welcome our analysts for this morning. Thank you very much for joining us, Wadi. Good morning.
Morning. Good morning, Kayode. Morning, Ayo. And good morning, Lagos.
Morning,
Wadi
Wadi.
is at the corporate MC on Twitter. And Devo is with us this morning. Good morning, Devo.
Good morning, Lagos. A cool unwanted explosion.
All
Devo
right.
is at Devo Korea on Twitter. Thanks, Devo. All right, let's go on to our first story. Very sad news here, Waji. Ijegun. Yesterday, we got news while we are on air, but we couldn't report because they were unconfirmed about an explosion that happened in the Ijegun area in Lagos State. So early morning pipeline explosion killed 3 persons, leaving scores injured and 31 cars completely razed. One of the many suburbs. According to reports, this is not the first time it is happening in this area. So, Waji, can you please take us through the story?
All right. Thank you, Ayo. This is your classic case of a continuation of the lack of indiscipline mixed with poverty and just no regulation when it comes to things that are of this sensitive nature. So basically, it's the same old story of a bunch of individuals who happen to be bunkering oil from the pipeline illegally.
Mhm.
And in the process of doing that, according to the multiple stories, which actually speak to 2 accounts of how the explosion happened. The first being that they happened to set some of the fuel that spilled from the tanker but they had siphoned the oil to
Yes.
when they were trying to flee the security forces. And they now set some of that fuel ablaze, which now went back to the point of origin, which was the actual pipeline itself, which now exploded. The second component that people were referring to that also caused the explosion, which could have been actually both, was that when people were siphoning the oil from the ground and trying to take it away, as always, there's somebody smoking or somebody there with some kind of igniting spark to now set up this blaze. I honestly don't know what we're going to do because you're talking about kilometers and kilometers and thousands of kilometers of pipeline, which you cannot in any capacity guard. You cannot put military soldiers or security forces across every single kilometer to now begin to protect it. It's just not possible. So I don't know what it is we need to do to discourage people that this is not the kind of lifestyle that you need to take. But obviously, when people feel that they're at a point of desperation
Yes.
and poverty comes rapid in their thinking and in their brains, they feel that they have absolutely no options, so they resort to these very, very quote unquote lucrative ways of making money, but dangerous at the same time. Not only dangerous to them,
It's illegal.
but not only is it illegal, but dangerous to themselves because you instantly get killed, burnt, completely eviscerated, and at the same time you
Lethal.
endanger the communities and the other people around there who had nothing to do
With
with your bunkering. They're not even enjoying the spoils of your efforts to get this kind of money. So it's a huge problem. This is not the first time that this happens. Not the second time. It's not the third time. It's just I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised, and as much as I completely feel horrible that 3 people died, but I am surprised and shocked that only 3 people have died. Because in situations like this, we normally hear scores and scores of individuals happen to pass away. So I think there needs to be some kind of, I don't know who to blame or who to put it into, but these are the trappings that you find in a society that is very, very dysfunctional when it comes to lack of unemployment, lack of education, whatever the case may be. I always talk about how you have to empower the thinking of the nation to get them to operate at a heightened level of sensitivity when it comes to human operations on a daily basis. And when you're educated, even though you don't have a job, there's some basic things that you prevent yourself from just by sheer discipline of having an understanding of how life is supposed to work that will prevent you from behaving like this. So I don't know if that is the source source of the problem. I keep saying that there's a war on education and the lack of proper education facilities or infrastructure in the country. These are the beckoning outcomes of that situation, is that people feel that they have to fend for themselves, and these are the outputs of it. And it's a real shame, because anybody that thinks that bunkering oil is a lucrative way to make a living, you're gone. You're far gone in your thinking
Do
capacity.
you think the leaders, community leaders, have a role to play? I ask this because I know that some oil firms who have pipelines running through some communities engender goodwill with these community leaders by, outreaches. So sometimes education sponsorships, scholarships for children of that community, awareness drives, going to meet the ballers, because some of these people know the people who who are involved in oil bunkering. So do you think perhaps we should engage them more or have more
Let me
community
tell you
awareness?
why I struggle with that, and I struggle with that in a couple of perspectives. And Devour, I'd love for you to chip in. Why are the oil companies going to these community leaders? Why are they engaging them? You should work with the federal government or state government authorities to now begin to build those communities. I have
Because they-
never, no, but I don't understand. I don't understand their role. These community leaders do not have any.
They wield a lot
Yeah,
of influence.
Ayo, hear me out. They
Mm.
don't have any legislative legal capacity. So you go to them, they will clearly take that money and do with it whatever they want. They're not bound by anything except morality or ethics to do anything, but there's no legal precedence to it. So the oil companies can easily hide behind, oh, well, we're giving the community leaders X amount of money to do X, Y, and Z. But the community leaders are not bound by anything.
Right,
So my point is, we still need to hold the people who have been elected into office or
Yes.
appointed into office that our taxes are paying to now regulate these situations. I'm sorry, these community leaders just use their necessary position or their influence or whatever noise that they can make, and then they leave these people to their vices to just do whatever they want. So if you remove them from the conversation, then they become irrelevant. I'm sorry, and that's just my own very personal opinion.
Maybe they
you
want
know,
them to, reach out to the communities, the people in the communities,
But
and
they
give them
don't.
certain types of
Kayode,
orientation.
we have been drilling oil in this country for going on over almost 60 years now. And we keep going to this community leaders. We keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. You want to know what the definition of insanity is? It's doing the same thing and expecting different results. How about we change the conversation? Stop engaging these community leaders. Set up actual proper structured programs that are regulated by legal legislative authorities to now get these things done.
You're going to get a reaction there. The reason I'm saying that is I worked with an organization which we managed one of these scholarships, and we engaged a lot with community leaders. And it is amazing the amount of influence they wield in the community. Now, some of them are selfish and will take the money and do nothing, but a majority of them actually have, because
I don't disagree.
And okay, so the reason I'm saying this and I'm talking about the community approach is this: they're the ones who know their people.
Yes.
They're the ones who are affected.
Yes.
When we have explosions like this, some of them, their houses are burnt, their family members are involved, and so they have a stake in it. And that's why you cannot really remove the community leaders or members from it, because the state government, the local government chairman is there, but doesn't have that kind of relationship.
Well,
with
if I may add, it's how we're structured.
Yes.
Communal living has been the way Nigeria has been structured from time, as to when the colonial masters advanced it into more of governance. Now, the real issue at hand is poverty. People with such understandings and mentalities always look for quick ways of reaping profits that they didn't work for. So it happens anywhere, it happens everywhere. Until the social welfare is addressed, they will still see opportunities like that, which are hazardous and dangerous, as quick opportunities. The same thing with advanced fee fraud, or those who sell fake drugs just to make a living. It's something that we have to
Prostitution,
deal
a bunch
with
of things.
in this country. People making the wrong choices, all in the name of
And you combat
pursuing
poverty with education.
happiness.
Absolutely.
You combat poverty with education. So just last point on this, I appreciate everything you're saying. I'm not taking away the influence that these individuals have. Under no circumstance am I saying that I agree with you 100%. But my issue is that I think it's a lot to ask of a community leader to be able to handle the situation. That's just the overall point I'm trying to make. There's only but so much they can do, because they're human beings as well, and more importantly, and as much as they have a stake in it, they are not bound by any constitutional authority to be able to do anything that actually affects any kind of change. And that's just my point.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Let's go to your comments, because obviously this is something like you mentioned, Waji, it's happening again and again and again. And sometimes you just hope that things like this and the casualties that emerge from accidents like this will deter people from doing it. But unfortunately, poverty, a lack of education, still prevalent, and still means people are still doing this. Let's go to Twitter for our first comment.
Chigozie on Twitter here says, can people ever learn and desist from scooping petroleum products whenever there is leakage? Meanwhile, let the government be proactive in carrying out mitigative action to quell pipeline leakages.
It's a combination of both.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Divo, let me come to you for the next one. Senate gives the National Health Insurance Service health management organizations 3 months to pay outstanding debts. The resolution came as a directive from the Senate yesterday. They were adopted after a motion was deliberated on the floor, and they noted that the scheme has a presidential mandate of achieving universal health coverage by 2015, but has failed in this regard, as available information shows that it currently boasts of a little above 6 million enrollees, even as at the middle of 2019.
Well, this is the Senate, the upper house of the National Assembly, on a 2-point resolution that was moved by a motion sponsored by Olorige Ibrahim and 8 other senators. Now they're looking at the fact that the National Health Insurance Scheme had failed. Yes, only boasting of 6 million, which is very, very poor, given the number of Nigerians, even working class Nigerians, who should be able to benefit from it. And for those who don't know health insurance, let me repeat myself. Many don't know that health insurance is available, because out-of-pocket payment for many of the medical expenses is very steep. And in most times, many people do not even approach hospitals. At best, they go to clinics, and most are used to even going to pharmacies for medical diagnosis and treatment. Or they go to their religious bodies for, more than powerful prayers to be able to heal them. Or some just rely on the traditional way of going to the herbalist or the medicine man. But the federal government, in its goodwill, had created the health insurance scheme to create a palliative measure of enabling Nigerians to be able to get health for when they are not at best. Now, this scheme includes the protocol of the NHIS working with the HMOs, who then have a group or consortium of hospitals and clinics under them. And one of the major frustrations for many of the hospitals was that they were not getting their money paid. So I'm sure many people listening can bear witness as to, in most cases, when you go to the hospital, you're being told, well, this is on your plan, this is not on your plan,
Yes.
we can only pay this amount, and then they start asking you for different numbers, simply because, and in some hospitals, they're quick to even give you a charge before they even listen to the fact that you are on the scheme, because they hate those who come on the scheme, because in the long run they get their money way past, or in some cases they don't even get their money at all. So to them, that's to the hospitals, they have been on a losing streak because of this HMO scheme. Now, recently the NHIS, the Senate gave the NHIS 3 months to be able to pay these outstanding debts. For example, the National Hospital of Abuja is being owed as high as 500 million, while other hospitals were being owed heavy amounts. Now, during this time, the NHIS has been embattled. As you know, the last executive secretary, that was Usman Yusuf, was sacked and by the president, and also the governing council dissolved. It's just recently that the president appointed Mohammed Sambo, who the Senate has said that they should give him time to be able to get things in order.
Yeah.
Now, many things were even pending, which was why the NHS wasn't functioning properly. Reaccreditation for the HMOs for this year, staff promotion, general administration, quality assurance, many of the exercises that they should have carried out to ensure that the scheme worked properly. Now, even though they've given the mandate to Mohammed Sambo, I really want to ask, and I hope the funds are available, because if they were available, how come they were not paid? So I hope he doesn't come back to the Senate to say, well, I didn't see the scheme. And I really hope a cash-eating elephant or gorilla has not passed through the NHIS, so that we don't start hearing stories over all the money that was given to them to be able to support the scheme.
Thank you. In any other country, or listening to any other news media, that would sound very, very funny. You talking about animals eating food, eating money.
We have them in
Only,
Nigeria.
yes, unfortunately, we have reports of them in Nigeria.
And it's not a metaphor, actually.
Mhm.
It's something that actually happens. Yeah.
Happened. All right, let's still on the pipeline story. We have 2 comments on YouTube. Emeka Onelum says, "How about installing technology on those pipelines that can monitor pressure drops in those pipes? That's what's done in many countries of the world." And Oluwaseun Rufai says, "On the pipeline issue, greed and lack of good community and state leaders contribute to this anomaly." Waji, I'll come to you for the next one, and it is a big story at the moment. Nigerians are excited; they're happy that social media is winning. This week, I've seen a meme that says it's a big win for social media.
Is it?
It is.
A number of people said that the issues that came up on social media that were trending has received, a positive response and what they called for. However, this Guardian report talks about the gains, worries over ascendancy of social media trial. Can you please take us through this quickly?
Okay, yeah, this is quite a long article,
Yes.
and there's just not enough time for us to go through it. So if anybody has the just go onto the Guardian and look for the link: gains, worries over ascendancy of social media trial. Now, this just more or less, like you said, talks about all the things that have been going on, not just over the last couple of weeks, but for some time. Actually, take it back a few years leading up to the presidential elections of 2015, and all the different things that social media had an impact on, even before that, with the Bring Back Our Girls campaign and everything else. Social media is a gift. It's a gift for this particular generation with regards to the things that it can do: connectivity, bringing people together, and ensuring that we have a closer community of the world where information is shared on a regular basis, and you can express yourself through branding. And it also creates many sources of revenue for you to also create alternative sources of income for yourself, or primary sources of income, whatever the case may be. But this is the challenge with social media. You have to understand what social media is. It is the open and public domain. So whatever you put out, whether it's put up by yourself or put up by somebody else, if you, the person in question, does not control the narrative of social media, it can be checked in a way that is completely uncontrollable. So if you happen to live in this age and you are doing things that can easily be broadcast on social media, you have to be very wary. There are some things that could be out of your control. Absolutely, 100%.
It's not well regulated.
That's my. Well, it can't be regulated. There's no, unless you want to just shut down the
free
internet. It's not
space.
possible. So the thing is, what I always advise people on, especially when you get on social media, is even if there are things that you happen to have done and that other people post, or whatever the case may be, you have to get in front of the story. You have to now take control of the narrative. So that's why a lot of people who happen to be in public positions have social media people who are managing how their perception online is managed. So it can't just be about the good, how well you're perceived, how many followers you have, or things of that nature. It's also in the sense that something negative happens. How do you now respond to it? Because it's not. It could change, and it could change. You can go from being a popular individual to being a villain. It can happen. So I always say that how you have to understand social media is how you engage and how you use it to control the narrative. So in as much as things may be very, very bad, the quickness of your response, how you reiterate a particular story, how you reply to a particular story, your level of objectivity can actually kill the viral nature of that story going live. What actually happens and feeds the virality of tweets, whatever the case may be, is the lack of response from the other individual in place. However, we also need to be very sensitive to what social media says. It's a lot of opinions that are out there. So we need to make sure we go back to the fundamental principle about opinions, which says what? You are entitled to your own opinions, but you're not entitled to your own facts. That comes from Barack Obama. So you need to be very wary about these things and be a lot more discerning when you're online to be able to now sort out the chaff from the wheat and be able to understand, is this story actually true? Does it begin to make sense before you equally begin to feed into the nonsense that's out there? So take the good and the bad that comes with it. It's a gift and a curse at the same time, but appreciate what social media can do, know how to respond to it, know how to treat it like some kind of wildflower that you have to make sure you curate in a particular manner to get the things that you want out of it. So it is what it is. It's the gift of this generation, but you have to understand and appreciate the fullness of it so that you can control the narrative and use it for your own benefit.
All right, thank you very
Much more, I'd even add that social media needs to be underscored by the values in society. We shouldn't forget that we need to teach our children our words to be able to think, to be able to know what is right and wrong. Because in today's times and age, perception is stronger than reality. and that is what brings,
Perception is reality.
yes, and that's what brings about a lot of the negative strain within the social media, despite the positive connotations that we know. So parents, do not forget, you need, so because in most cases when they're on social media, you're not there, and how they make decisions is based on what they know and what they've been taught.
Thank you very much. I just looked at the time and I'm like, oh my goodness. Right, oil revenue records, another monthly decline of 62 billion naira. This is from the Punch newspaper Devo. Please take us through this very quickly and the implications.
Okay, basically what they're saying is that from March, there's been a decline in the oil revenue, okay, due to the shut-ins and shutdowns at the terminals, due to NNPC's maintenance and pipeline repair works. Hence, the CBN has said that's translated to a decline in the monthly revenue allocation. Simply because of the oil revenue. Now, what this throws up, right, without going into the figures, is that it throws up the concentration risk staring at us in the face, which is basically Nigeria depends so much on oil. Therefore, if there's any shock or there's any decline, we lose ultimately, even though non-oil revenues have been stable to some extent. So what it calls for is diversification. The fiscal planning required. What are our senators doing? Because it requires them enabling the mandate of the executive to get us to where we will have a diversified economy, so that even if oil is suffering, the economy is still making money and moving forward.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to our next story real quick. But before that, we have one message here. This one from Comrade Henry says, on pipeline fire, we need more modern technology in monitoring our pipelines. And well, he goes further to talk about other stories happening around. But real quick, let's get into our next story. This one here is quite interesting. It's from Premium Science. It says, detained Madonna University students and lecturer released from prison. And this comes to you, Ajay. So basically, it comes on the backdrop of the fact that some of these students were arrested for Facebook posts which allegedly portrayed the school in bad light, and 6 of them and a lecturer from Madonna University were released. The court granted them bail just a few days ago.
So this goes back to the power of social media once again. So some students went online to protest about situations in the university, and the university got in their feelings and decided to, arrest them. And not just let you know about the sheer ridiculousness of the judicial system, where you don't actually now put things through proper process. You just arrest people based on the fact that they're accused of what? Online cyberbullying. That doesn't make any sense. How does you going online and making a criticism of a university now make it cyberbullying? So credit to the people who were able to fast-headedly now tackle the situation, get in front of the story, and get this lecturer and the students released.
Okay, thank you very much for that one. Real quick, let's move on to our next story. This one says SEC adopts new measure to tackle unclaimed dividends. This is from the Guardian newspaper. This comes to you, Devo.
Okay. Well, the second its release has gifted Nigerians some enhanced services, and they're saying that as of Wednesday, that there will be reduced time in processing, custom transmission of shares for transmission of benefits of deceased individuals. Okay, before it used to take about 3 weeks. Now it has been dropped down to 1 week. This was coming on the announcement of the acting director general, Mrs. Mary Udwak, and she was asking those who have beneficiaries who own shares who have passed on that they can get this, and that the registries were meant to hold on to these new policies. Now, we don't have so much time, but I'll just break down a bit. Beneficiaries are meant to send a letter indicating the name, address, BVNs, and the executors with the original death certificate from the NPC, that's National Population Committee, original probate letter, and then a certified true copy from the notary public. Now, at the end of the day, she did mention that in terms of charging, that the total charge will not be more than 1%. There's a 5% VAT charge. Also, the dematerialization of the share certificates were meant to help in moving the electronic dividend. There are more fees involved, but basically what they've done is they've enhanced the service so as to make it easier. She said that there's so many unclaimed dividends within the SEC at the moment, and they want to ensure that beneficiaries of those who own those shares get it at the end of the day.
Can it be gotten in 24 hours though?
No, no, it's like she's mentioned, from 3 weeks, it's now a 1 week timeline. Hopefully, if they enhance technology, they'll get there.
Okay, let's get to our next story. We have some messages though.
And Harry Okaro from Agos says the HMO scheme are most positioned for working class citizens. It's hard for the traders and sole business owners to enroll to a scheme. This should be the focus of the government. All Nigerians should have access to a health scheme.
Yeah, I think they're getting there.
Well, actually, this one's for you. It's from the Premium Times. It's a special report. They talk about inside Nigeria's prisons where thousands languish for years without trial. And we touched a little on this yesterday, but we'd like you to take us through the story.
Well, it's a very sad story when you actually go through it, and everybody should go and read it. And it's a wonderful report by Premium Times, and it breaks down some very, very alarming statistics about the number of people that are languishing in Nigerian prisons without awaiting trial, people who are forgotten or the judicial system just happens to have overlooked. You have a situation where 61 individuals are sleeping in a cell that's not fit for maybe 4 people. It's just absolute madness when you now begin to look when you now begin to look at the numbers of people. And this now, just lets you know how dire these situations are. It really, really, really goes quite beckoning that what's going on in our judicial system, why are people being arrested, people are being picked up for all kinds of situations, people who have influence and now arresting individuals, throwing them in jail. If you happen to bring a sick person to the hospital and that person passes away, they hold you. There's so many circumstances of people who have done absolutely nothing wrong, who are languishing in prisons, and we need to really, really begin to unpack these issues and tell these stories more, and tell the stories of the individuals who have happened to suffer these very, very sad situations, so that they can actually get out there and we can now begin to see the kind of change. So this is when you can use social media from a positive light, when you now broadcast the stories of these individuals so that they can get some kind of justice, and then we can now begin to fix these situations that keep happening where people just get arrested for absolutely no reason, no due process, no judiciary hearing, nothing is being processed in the sense of them being charged with a crime, and they're just languishing in these jails for months on end, in some cases years, getting sick, going through all kind of horrible situations, abuse, and all sorts of things that can have psychological impacts on them. So we need to tell these stories more so we can now begin to work on how best we can change the system so that we can have a better society.
It is bad. The prison is actually the lowest ebb in the judiciary process. They're literally forgotten. I think I've been to the prison several times over. They're not even fed. As they tell you before you enter the prison, if you have no one to bring you food, you are on your own.
Wow.
All right, thank you very much for that one. Our last story, real quick, comes to you, Devo. Diversion of school feeding program fund. APC contractors refund 38 million naira in Ondo State.
Well, the government has touted the success of this project and how they provided funds to be able to feed school children 1 meal per day. Well, in Ondo State, some decided to get smart and divert that fund. So I think the APC had found a way to get them to return the funds. PDP pounced on it to call in the EFCC to investigate that such diversion was criminal. So we're hoping that
some people will be held accountable.
yes, not just being held accountable, that adequate justice is brought to the whole scenario.
All right, thank you very much. I'll take this comment from Yinka very quickly. Let me tell you, in this country, you must fall sick. Please don't fall sick beyond malaria and worse, typhoid fever. Anything more than that, you're on your own. I was at last week, and I dare say to say, even Sonwulu can't allow himself to be treated there. Talk more of the president. So what's the point? What's the point of the insurance working if the hospitals are dead? And Ozzy has this one here.
Ozzy says, "Good morning. I'm sorry. Please, is it true that they arrest people for bringing accident victims to hospitals? We can't." Well,
No,
there
there
are cases
there
where
are
it has
cases. There are
Yes,
cases.
other cases it's
So it's
happened.
not overwhelmingly true, but it has happened.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to all those who sent, all our listeners who sent in comments. We're really grateful. But special thanks to our analysts in the studio, Waji at the corporate MC with a K. So the corporate MC with a K, and Devo at Devo Corey. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
All right, guys, great one.
All right. Thank you. Yes,
Thank you so
indeed.
much.
Thank you very much.
I like the way you did the social media story, though.
Thank you.
Have you taken
I'm
any?
Social media story. I like the way you